Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are diving deep into Kenya's digital economy blueprint.
Okay.
Now, this is fascinating stuff. I mean, we've seen a lot of countries around the world putting together digital strategies and
Yeah.
blueprints, but this one is really catching a lot of attention.
Hmm.
And you're probably interested to see just how Kenya is planning to be a major player in the digital world,
Yeah.
especially in Africa. And get this, they're aiming to be the Silicon Savannah, no less.
That's a big goal.
Big goal. Huge ambition, right?
It is, yeah.
I mean, especially after seeing what they've already done with M-Pesa, I'm thinking maybe they can pull it off.
It's really fascinating how they are using these disruptive technologies to leapfrog traditional development stages.
Right.
Like you said, M-Pesa is just a revolution in terms of financial inclusion,
Yeah.
bringing millions of people into the formal economy
Hmm.
who were never part of traditional banking.
Right. Yeah, it's incredible. And Pesa is a real game changer. And so this blueprint, it's built around five main pillars.
Yeah.
Right. Digital government, digital business, infrastructure,
Mm-hmm.
innovation-driven entrepreneurship, and digital skills and values.
Yep, that's it.
Kind of like the roadmap to digital dominance.
Exactly. And what's really impressive is how they've actually woven all these pillars together
Right.
into this cohesive strategy to really create a digital ecosystem. It's
Yeah.
not just about adopting technology,
Mm-hmm.
but transforming like the entire economy and society.
So let's start with digital government.
Mm-hmm.
What are they doing to modernize government services? Nobody likes paperwork and bureaucracy.
Well, imagine this. You need to register a business or apply for a passport.
Yeah.
You can do it all online from home.
Wow.
That's what Kenya's e-citizen platform offers.
Okay.
And here's the kicker. You can pay for all these services using mobile money.
Incredible. I mean, I remember when I visited Kenya a few years back,
Yeah.
and I was just amazed at how much they were already doing with mobile money. And so to have that integrated into government services is just, it's incredible. I mean, that must have had a huge impact on people's lives.
It has. It's not just about convenience.
Right.
It's about really empowering citizens
Yeah.
and making those services accessible to everyone,
Right.
no matter where they live or how much money they make.
Right. So it's really about that inclusive digital
Right.
economy.
This sorts that ambition.
And speaking of ambition, they're also launching that Huduma Namba, a unique digital ID for all citizens.
Right.
A first in Africa. And, if they can pull this off, this could have major implications for everything,
Yeah.
from social welfare programs to voter registration.
Absolutely. And it also highlights their commitment to regional integration.
Okay.
They really see their digital success as intertwined with the entire East African region.
Interesting.
They're even advocating for a single digital market for Africa,
Wow.
which could be a major driver of economic growth for the whole continent.
Okay, so that's digital government now. Let's dive into digital business. What's their plan for creating a thriving digital marketplace?
They're focusing on areas like digital trade, financial services, and content creation.
Okay.
And they're really leveraging that mobile money revolution that M-Pesa started.
Yeah.
Did you know 70% of e-commerce payments in Kenya are settled through mobile money?
That's incredible. I mean, they've really embraced mobile money, but
They have.
what's next for them? I mean, are they just content with facilitating payments, or do they have bigger ambitions?
Oh, they definitely are aiming higher.
Okay.
Want to move beyond just transactions.
Right.
And use digital tools to create value.
Okay.
So think access to credit,
Mm-hmm.
connecting businesses to new markets,
Yeah.
equipping people with essential business skills,
Okay.
and even supporting the growth of creative industries.
Wow. So it
Bam.
sounds like they're building a whole ecosystem around digital business,
They are.
not just focusing on one aspect. But can they pull it off? I mean, creating value in the digital space requires more than just technology, right?
You're absolutely right. And that's where the next pillar comes in, infrastructure.
Okay.
It's the foundation upon which everything else is built.
Right.
Without that strong, reliable infrastructure, all these ambitious plans would just crumble.
So what kind of infrastructure are we talking about here? Is it just laying more fiber optic cables and building cell towers?
While those are important, it's much more than that.
Okay.
They're investing heavily in broadband coverage
Right.
through things like NOFBI,
Okay.
their national optic fiber backbone infrastructure,
Right.
and the Universal Service Fund, which aims to bridge the digital divide by providing affordable internet access
Got it.
to underserved areas.
That's fantastic. But I can imagine there are challenges too,
Oh, there are.
especially in a country with such diverse geography and varying levels of development.
You're exactly right. Bridging the digital divide and ensuring equitable access to broadband is a major hurdle.
Yeah.
But they're getting creative. For instance, they're even using existing infrastructure, like power lines, to distribute fiber optic cables,
Wow.
which is pretty innovative.
That's really thinking outside the box.
It is.
And then there's Kanza Technopolis.
Yes.
Which is like this futuristic smart city designed to be a hub for all this technological innovation.
That's right. Kanza is a perfect example of their long-term vision. It's not just about solving today's problems, but creating an environment that'll attract investment,
Yeah.
nurture talent, and drive innovation for decades to come.
I'm starting to see a pattern here. They're really thinking big
They are.
and aiming for long-term impact. But what about the immediate opportunities? Where are they seeing the most potential for growth in the short term?
Well, the blueprint highlights specific areas like expanding the national broadband
Okay.
to reach even the most remote corners of the country, and the digital gaming sector, which is really attracting a lot of investment interest.
Okay, so they're laying the groundwork for a connected future while also capitalizing on those existing opportunities.
Exactly.
Now let's move on to the next pillar, innovation-driven entrepreneurship. I love hearing about startups and innovative businesses. What's cooking in Kenya's tech scene?
They're fostering a really vibrant ecosystem to support these tech startups and businesses.
Okay.
And they've already got some really impressive success stories.
Right.
Like Africa's Talking, Cellulent Corporation, Little Cabs, Weezatella, Sokowatch, and BitPesa.
Those are some interesting names, and they all sound like they're addressing real-world challenges in really innovative ways.
They are.
Well, what about the challenges these startups face? I mean, access to funding, mentorship,
Absolutely.
supportive regulatory environment, these are all crucial for their success, right?
They are. And
Yeah.
the blueprint recognizes that.
Okay.
They're promoting targeted research and development, implementing government policies and incentives to attract investment,
Right.
and fostering a culture of mentorship and collaboration.
So it's interesting how they're not just throwing money at the problem.
Right.
They're really taking this holistic approach to support the entire entrepreneurial journey.
Yes,
But even with the best support system, success ultimately comes down to people, right?
it does.
Which brings us to that final pillar, digital skills and values.
Absolutely. Technology is only as good as the people who use it.
Right.
And the blueprint really stresses how critical it is to develop a digitally skilled workforce.
So it's not just about teaching people how to code,
It's not.
but about fostering digital literacy, critical thinking, and a strong ethical framework.
That's right.
It's about equipping people with the skills and the mindset to thrive in a digital world,
Exactly.
not just become passive consumers of technology.
Exactly.
And they've outlined this multi-pronged approach
They have.
that includes training and education initiatives, supporting coding schools and organizations, and promoting open and distance learning
Yeah.
to reach even the most remote communities.
Yeah.
That's quite a comprehensive strategy.
It is.
But with technology changing so fast, how are they ensuring that these skills remain relevant and up to date?
That's a great question. And it leads us into what we call the cross-cutting issues that weave through all 5 pillars.
Okay.
These issues are critical to the overall success of their digital ambitions.
This is where things get even more interesting. So are we ready to delve deeper into these cross-cutting issues?
Absolutely. We'll continue our exploration in part 2 of this deep dive.
Sounds good. Okay, so we've covered those 5 pillars of Kenya's digital economy blueprint, but now it's time to get into those cross-cutting issues.
Right.
These are like the threads that connect everything together, right?
Exactly.
What's the first one that we should unpack?
Well, first up is this idea of an integrated ecosystem.
Okay.
Think of it like a well-oiled machine where all the different parts work together seamlessly.
Oh, good, I can see that, but what does that look like in the real world? Can you give me an example?
Sure, imagine you're a small business owner in Kenya and you need to pay a supplier in Tanzania in an integrated ecosystem. This transaction should be just as smooth as paying someone within Kenya.
Right.
No complicated currency conversions, no delays, just a simple, secure transfer.
So it's about removing all those friction points and making those transactions flow smoothly across borders.
Exactly.
That would be a game changer, especially for businesses in a region like East Africa, where cross-border trade is so important.
It is, and it goes beyond just payments.
Okay.
An integrated ecosystem also means that different platforms and systems can talk to each other,
Right.
exchanging data seamlessly.
So give me an example of that.
Sure, like your business registration information on that e-citizen platform
Yeah.
could be automatically shared with the tax authority,
Okay.
simplifying the whole process of filing your taxes.
Okay, so it's all about interconnectivity, making sure all the pieces of that digital puzzle are fitting together.
Exactly.
So what's the next cross-cutting issue we have?
Next up is data.
Okay.
We touched on it briefly earlier, but it's so crucial. It deserves its own deep dive.
Data. It seems like everything revolves around data these days, but remind me, what are they specifically doing with data in Kenya?
Well, they're taking a two-pronged approach.
Okay.
Open data and big data.
Right.
Open data is about making government data freely available to the public.
Okay.
Think of it like a public library for data,
Okay.
where anyone can access information on things like government budgets, health statistics, or even traffic patterns.
So it's all about transparency and making information accessible to everyone.
It is, and it can empower citizens,
Right.
fuel innovation, and even help businesses make better decisions.
Give me an example.
Sure, an entrepreneur could use open data on consumer spending habits to decide where to open their next shop.
Okay, that's a good example. So open data is about sharing information freely.
Right.
But what about big data? That's kind of the opposite, isn't it? I mean, it's all about collecting massive amounts of information.
You're right. Big data is about collecting and analyzing these vast amounts of data,
Okay.
often from multiple sources.
So where does this data come from?
This data can come from things like online transactions,
Okay.
social media activity,
Right.
mobile phone usage, even sensor networks.
Wow. So big data is like this fire hose of information,
Yeah.
and open data is like this carefully curated collection of the most useful stuff.
You could say that.
But how are they actually using big data in Kenya?
Well, they're using it to make better decisions, improve service delivery,
Okay.
and even personalize experiences.
So give me an example of that.
Sure, they could analyze traffic data to optimize traffic flow,
Mm.
or use health data to identify disease outbreaks early on.
Okay, so really powerful stuff.
It is.
But what about privacy? I mean, with all this data being collected and analyzed, how do they ensure that people's information is actually protected?
That's a crucial question.
Yeah.
And the blueprint addresses it head on.
Oh,
They
yeah.
emphasize the need for those robust data security measures.
Great. And a clear legal framework for data protection.
So are they doing anything specific?
They're currently developing a privacy and data protection bill,
Okay.
which will establish clear guidelines for how data can be collected, stored, and used.
So it's all about striking that balance between harnessing the power of data,
Right.
but also safeguarding people's privacy and ensuring ethical data handling.
Absolutely. It's a delicate balancing act,
Yeah.
but an absolutely necessary one in the digital age.
Okay, I agree. So let's shift gears a little bit now and talk about emerging trends.
Okay.
This is where things get really exciting.
Yeah.
What are some of the key trends they're focusing on?
Well, they've identified several key trends shaping the digital future,
Yeah.
including gaming the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and blockchain technology.
Okay, let's start with gaming.
Mm.
I have to admit, I'm a little puzzled by this one.
Oh, yeah.
What does gaming have to do with the digital economy?
Well, it might seem surprising,
Uh,
but gaming has become a massive global industry.
It's not just about entertainment anymore.
Okay.
It's driving innovation, creating jobs, generating significant revenue.
So they're looking to tap into that potential
They are.
and develop their own gaming sector.
Exactly.
Okay, why do they think they can do that?
Well, they have good reason to be optimistic.
Okay.
Kenya has a young and tech-savvy population,
All right.
and there's a growing appetite for digital entertainment.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's talk about the Internet of Things. This is one of those buzzwords I hear all the time,
Right.
but I'm not sure I fully grasp it. Can you break it down for me?
Sure, think of it this way. The Internet of Things is about connecting everyday objects to the Internet.
Okay.
This could be anything from your refrigerator to your car to your watch.
Okay, so it's about creating this network of connected devices that can all collect and share data.
Exactly.
And this data can be used to make our lives easier, more efficient, and even safer.
Absolutely.
Can you give me a concrete example of how this would play out in Kenya?
Sure, imagine a farmer in rural Kenya.
Who can use sensors to monitor soil moisture levels
Okay.
and automatically irrigate their crops,
Wow.
optimizing water usage and maximizing yields.
That's incredible. Or what about in healthcare?
Right. Or imagine a healthcare system where patients can remotely monitor their vital signs and share that data with their doctors.
So improving access to healthcare in those remote areas.
Exactly.
Wow, those are some pretty compelling examples. It seems like the potential applications for the Internet of Things are limitless.
They really are.
Now let's move on to artificial intelligence, or AI. This one always gets me thinking about sci-fi movies.
Yeah.
How is AI actually being used in the real world, and what are Kenya's ambitions in this area?
Well, AI is already being used in a wide range of applications, from personalized recommendations on shopping websites
Right.
to fraud detection in financial transactions.
So Kenya wants to be a leader in AI innovation.
They do. They're not just content with being consumers of AI technologies developed elsewhere. Okay, but isn't AI a field that's dominated by these global tech giants with massive resources? I mean, how can Kenya compete at that level?
It's a good question.
Yep.
But they're focusing on developing niche expertise in areas that are relevant to their context,
Okay.
such as AI-powered solutions for agriculture, healthcare, and education.
Okay.
They're also investing in building a strong talent pool
Right.
by supporting AI research and training programs.
So it's about finding their unique strengths within that AI landscape
Exactly.
and focusing on areas where they can really make a difference.
Mm.
All right, last but not least, we have blockchain technology.
Okay.
This one is always a bit of a head scratcher for me. Can you demystify it a bit?
Sure. Think of blockchain as a digital ledger
Okay.
that's distributed across a network of computers.
Okay.
This makes it incredibly secure and transparent
Right.
because any changes to the ledger are recorded and verified by everyone on that network.
So it's like a public record that's tamper-proof.
Exactly. And this has huge potential applications in various sectors.
Like what?
Well, for example, blockchain could be used to create a secure land registry system,
Oh, okay.
preventing fraud and disputes over land ownership.
Okay, that's starting to make more sense now. But how are they actually using blockchain in Kenya?
They've actually set up a task force to explore the potential applications of blockchain
Okay.
and are already experimenting with pilot projects in areas like supply chain management and digital identity.
So they're taking a really proactive approach
They are.
to exploring this emerging technology and seeing how they can use it to solve those specific challenges.
Exactly. And that brings us to our next cross-cutting issue, green ICT.
Okay.
As the digital economy grows, it's crucial to consider its environmental impact.
That's a really good point. We
Yeah.
can't just blindly embrace technology without thinking about its sustainability.
Right.
What are they doing to make sure that their digital growth is environmentally responsible?
Well, they're focusing on several key areas,
Right.
including energy efficiency, responsible e-waste management,
Mm-hmm.
and the use of renewable energy sources to power that digital infrastructure.
Well, I know Kenya is already a leader in renewable energy.
They are.
So are they trying to extend those green practices to the ICT sector?
Absolutely. They're encouraging things like the use of energy-efficient data centers,
Okay.
promoting the adoption of green IT standards,
Right.
and even exploring the possibility of locating data centers near renewable energy sources to minimize their carbon footprint.
Wow, that's fantastic. So they're taking this holistic approach to sustainability,
Yes,
considering the entire life cycle of those digital technologies.
exactly.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground here. Integrated ecosystem, data, emerging trends, and green ICT.
Mhm.
What's the last cross-cutting issue that we need to tackle?
The final and perhaps the most fundamental issue is security.
Right, because all of these digital advancements are meaningless if they're not secure. What are they doing to build a secure and trustworthy digital environment?
Well, they're taking a multi-layered approach,
Okay.
focusing on cybersecurity, physical security,
Right.
and a robust legal framework.
Can you elaborate on each of those layers? What are they actually doing?
Sure, on the cybersecurity front, they're implementing strong data protection measures,
Okay.
establishing a National Computer Emergency Response Team, or CERT,
Okay.
to respond to cyber threats.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also promoting awareness campaigns to educate the public about online safety.
So it's not just about building those technical defenses. It's
It's-
also about empowering people to be responsible digital citizens.
Exactly. And then on the physical security side,
Yeah.
they're addressing issues like vandalism of telecommunications infrastructure,
Okay.
ensuring the resilience of critical infrastructure to natural disasters,
Right.
and working to streamline the process for obtaining rights of way and licenses for infrastructure deployment.
So they're thinking about both the digital and physical aspects of security.
Yes.
And what about that legal framework? How does that play into the overall security strategy?
Well, they're aligning their cybersecurity policies with the guidelines of the African Union Convention on cybersecurity and personal data protection.
Mm-hmm.
And they're working to strengthen laws against cybercrime.
Okay.
They're also promoting this concept of security by design,
What does that mean?
which means building security into digital systems and technologies from the ground up.
So it's about embedding security into the very fabric of the digital economy,
Exactly.
rather than treating it as an afterthought.
Right. And they're also focusing on building the capacity of law enforcement and the judiciary
Right.
to effectively investigate and prosecute cybercrime.
Okay, so it's really a comprehensive approach,
Yes.
recognizing that security is a shared responsibility
Yes,
that requires collaboration between government, industry, and individuals.
absolutely. And this brings us to the final and perhaps most critical piece of the puzzle,
Yeah.
the policy and regulatory framework.
Right, because even with all the best intentions and the most innovative ideas, nothing's going to move forward without that supportive policy environment.
Exactly. And that's where we'll pick things up in part 3 of this deep dive.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into Kenya's digital economy blueprint. We've covered the 5 pillars, we've explored those cross-cutting issues,
Right.
and now it's time to tackle that policy and regulatory framework.
Okay.
And this is where the rubber meets the road, right?
It's the scaffolding that supports the entire structure
Okay.
of Kenya's digital ambitions. Without a solid framework,
Yep.
everything else we talked about could just crumble.
So what's the current state of play? I mean, are they starting from scratch, or do they have existing policies that just need to be updated?
Well, they're actually facing a very common challenge,
Okay.
a legacy of regulations that were really designed for a pre-digital world.
Ah, yeah.
You know, those old rules often stifle innovation.
Mm-hmm.
They limit investment and make it harder for new technologies to emerge.
So what's the solution? A complete overhaul?
Not necessarily. The blueprint actually outlines a much more nuanced approach,
Okay.
advocating for a dynamic and flexible regulatory framework that can adapt to that rapid pace of technological change.
So evolution, not revolution.
Exactly.
But how do they actually make that happen? What are some of the key principles they're focusing on?
One key principle is adaptive regulation,
Okay.
which means moving away from that regulate and forget mindset
Okay.
and adopting a more responsive and interactive approach.
So like always learning, always adjusting.
Exactly. Regulators need to be constantly learning,
Right.
adjusting, and keeping pace with that digital landscape.
So being proactive and anticipating changes rather than reacting to them after the fact.
Right.
What else is on their agenda?
Well, they're also advocating for the use of regulatory sandboxes.
Regulatory sandboxes, what are those?
Think of them as controlled environments
Okay.
where new technologies and business models can be tested
Okay.
without being stifled by existing regulations.
So like a safe space for innovation.
Exactly.
It allows regulators to kind of observe and learn before applying those broader rules.
Yeah.
So it's about encouraging experimentation and fostering those new ideas
Yeah.
while still protecting consumers and ensuring that market stability.
Exactly. It's a win-win.
Sounds like it. What other principles are they highlighting?
They also talk about outcome-based regulation,
Okay.
which focuses on results and performance,
Mm-hmm.
rather than dictating specific technologies or processes.
So set the goals and let companies figure out how to get there.
Exactly. It's about setting clear goals and letting companies figure out the best way to achieve them.
Makes sense, allows for a lot more flexibility and innovation.
It does.
Wow.
But they also discuss this concept of risk-weighted regulation,
Okay.
recognizing that not all digital services pose the same level of risk.
Right. So a small startup developing a mobile app shouldn't be subject to the same level of scrutiny as a major financial institution,
Exactly.
handling sensitive customer data.
It's about applying common sense and proportionality.
Right. Okay, so what else do we have?
And finally, they emphasize the importance of collaborative regulation, which means breaking down those silos and encouraging cooperation between regulators, policymakers, industry players, even consumers.
So it's a much more inclusive approach, recognizing that everyone has a stake in the digital economy.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But even with these guiding principles, I imagine there are still some specific challenges that they need to address.
There are.
What are some of those sticking points?
Well, one major challenge is building the capacity of lawmakers and the judiciary
Okay.
so they can better understand the complexities of the digital world. You
Yep.
can't write effective laws or make informed decisions
Right.
if you don't understand the technology.
And that's got to be a constant struggle, just trying to keep up with the pace of technological change.
It is.
What other challenges are they facing?
Well, they also need to develop a really robust legal framework to enforce contracts,
Okay.
resolve disputes, and protect consumers in the digital space.
Right.
It's about making sure that online transactions are just as legally binding as offline transactions and that consumers have the same rights and protections.
The digital world shouldn't be the Wild West.
It shouldn't.
Okay, what else?
Taxation is another really thorny issue.
Okay, how do you tax something that's essentially borderless and constantly evolving?
Right. It's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
But the blueprint stresses the need for fair and transparent tax policies
Okay.
that don't stifle innovation
Right,
or unfairly burden small businesses.
right. But also ensure that governments can collect the revenue they need
Right.
to fund those essential services.
Exactly.
So finding that sweet spot
Yes.
where everyone benefits.
That's right.
Okay, what other policy areas are they focusing on?
Well, spectrum allocation is another critical area.
Spectrum now. For folks who might not be familiar with that term, can you explain it a bit?
Sure. Spectrum refers to the radio waves that allow for wireless communication,
Okay.
and how it's allocated can have a huge impact on the development of the digital economy.
So if it's auctioned off at really high prices, it could create barriers to entry for new mobile operators and just limit the expansion of broadband coverage.
Exactly. And the blueprint emphasizes the need for transparent and market-driven spectrum allocation policies
Okay.
that prioritize maximizing the use of this valuable resource for the benefit of the whole economy.
So using that spectrum efficiently and effectively to drive digital growth.
Right.
Okay, so what else?
They also highlight the importance of net neutrality,
Okay.
which is the principle that all internet traffic should be treated equally,
right.
without discrimination or preferential treatment.
So no blocking, throttling, or creating those fast lanes for certain types of content or services.
Exactly.
Why is that so important?
Well, net neutrality is really essential for fostering innovation competition
Okay.
and free speech online. It ensures a level playing field for all players, big or small,
Right.
and prevents internet service providers from picking winners and losers.
Okay, so preserving the openness and the accessibility of the internet.
Exactly.
What other policy priorities are they outlining?
Well, they also mention the need to address digital accessibility for people with disabilities,
Oh, right.
ensuring that everyone can participate in the digital economy.
Yeah.
It's making sure that digital services are designed to be inclusive and usable by everyone, regardless of their abilities.
That's a crucial aspect of digital inclusion.
It is.
And finally, what about the role of the government itself in all of this? I mean, how can they really drive this digital transformation?
Well, the blueprint really emphasizes the need for governments to embrace digital leadership.
Okay.
This means things like implementing technology-neutral policies, putting government services online, using data to improve decision-making, and generally promoting a culture of digital transformation within the public sector.
So walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. If governments want to encourage digital adoption in the private sector,
Right.
they need to lead by example.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Kenya's digital economy blueprint.
It does.
Wow, we covered a lot of ground.
We did.
From the 5 pillars to the cross-cutting issues to this policy and regulatory framework. And it's really clear that Kenya has a very comprehensive and ambitious vision for its digital future.
They do. They've really identified the key ingredients for success, and now it's all about execution.
It will be fascinating to see how it all unfolds in the coming years. I mean, could Kenya truly become the Silicon Savannah?
Right.
And could their experience serve as a model for other African nations that are looking to harness the power of the digital economy? I guess we'll have to wait and see.
We will.
But one thing's for sure, Kenya is definitely a country to watch in the digital space.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and be sure to tune in next time for another fascinating exploration.
Great. Thanks for having me.